G'day and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I want to show you how to do the correct shrug technique for optimal strength and conditioning gains through those upper trap muscles. Now, I think you'll agree with me that the shrug exercise is one that's often performed poorly. Mainly for me, I think, because a lot of people tend to load up too much weight when doing the exercise, so it can tend to force you into some bad positions, to engage some bad techniques just to complete the exercise. So what I want to touch on in this video is I want to touch on what I find to be the best way to do the shrug exercise. And we're going to do a couple of little tips throughout this video that you may not necessarily be aware of that will really help supercharge that shrug exercise. So before we get to the video, obviously, if you can consider leaving a like rating down below, consider subscribing to the channel if you're new. And obviously, if you genuinely find this video insightful and helpful and beneficial, then please consider leaving a super thanks donation on the video. It's just a great way to support me and the channel and help it grow and help us continue to move forward. So with that being said, when doing the shrug exercise, I'm going to use a TheraBand for convenience. Clearly you can use some dumbbells, a barbell, whatever you feel comfortable with, a trap bar if it is for you, but make sure that even if the demands of the apparatus that you're using changes slightly, the technique is essentially the same. So like any exercise, we need to make sure that the correct technique is very reminiscent of correct posture or correct positions. So for most exercises, you're going to either start in a great position and try and maintain that position throughout, or you're going to try and end up in a great position at some point. So it's no different with the shrugs. So before we even get to doing the exercise, we need to make sure that you start from a great position. So we need to make sure that you're up nice and tall, that rib cage is down. We don't want you to be poking your chest out. I want your rib cage to be down without making you feel like you're slouching a little bit. Up nice and tall, shoulders comfortably back. And for a lot of people, we tend to forget what the head and neck is doing. So we need to make sure that you imagine that you've got a piece of string from the top of your head, or someone's grabbed you by the hair and they're pulling you up. And that generally tends to pull us into a good position. And just double check that your chin isn't poking out or tucked in too much. We sort of want a neutral position to lay this exercise on top of. We want to build a great postural foundation to layer over the top of that the shrug. Now what we want to do with this exercise, and what I like to get most people to do here, is when you're up nice and tall, shoulders back in a comfortable position, it's always good to have your hands a little bit apart from your trunk. Don't sandwich your arms in when doing the shrug. If you have your hands out a little bit more, it just forces the rotator cuff and the upper traps to engage more, so that when you're doing the shrug, you'll get a little bit more out of it. Now, the second thing I think that a lot of people sort of neglect when they do the shrug is we tend to really focus on how high we go. We want to go as high as humanly possible each time. Now, while that is correct on a number of levels, we don't want to sacrifice a good neck position while doing that. So when you're doing a shrug and you're lifting those shoulder blades and those shoulders up, make sure that your head doesn't poke out. Because what a lot of people tend to do is when trying to get up as high as possible, poking your chin out gives you a sense that you're going higher, or your shoulders are coming up higher relative to where your head is. But in actual fact, you're still getting the same distance upwards, but you're sacrificing a good neck position at the same time. So again, making sure that you stay in that good position with your shoulders comfortably back. And the cue that I like to use for most people is imagine that you're trying to get your shoulders up behind your ears. We don't want your shoulders to round forwards, again, because that does encourage you to poke your chin out a little bit further. Essentially, with your hands out, your shoulder blades back, we just want you to come up and down as far as you feel comfortable while maintaining that position. And what you'll feel very quickly is you'll feel those upper trap muscles get a really good workout. But if you want to supercharge this exercise further, and this is definitely something that I don't see a lot of people doing, but clinically it works fantastically to really engage those upper trap muscles, is once you've got your hands in a good position, shoulders comfortably back, neck in a good position, what I get a lot of people to do is just hinge forwards from your hips a little bit, maybe sort of 10 to 20 degrees, and do your shrug from this position as opposed to being bolt upright. The reason for that is that the upper trap muscles themselves sit behind the spine essentially, or behind sort of the center of gravity as it goes down through the body. So by leaning forward slightly before doing the exercise, you can really target those upper trap muscles a little bit more than what you would be if you were directly straight up and down. So when doing the shrug exercise, as I said, it's really important to make sure that you prioritize and value a good posture from the very start to the very finish of the exercise. make sure that that position stays the same when you're lifting those shoulder blades up and down. Don't let them come forwards. Don't drop all the way down, because that has a tendency to help you roll forwards as well. So the distance that you go up and down is really based upon how well you can maintain a great posture all the way throughout the exercise. Now, the final thing I wanted to touch on about the shrug exercise is one of the most common mistakes that I see a lot of people make. You probably can't call it a mistake, but the variation that a lot of people tend to do is, for some reason, we're in this idea that we need to roll our shoulders up and back when we do this as an exercise. Now, that, from a movement perspective, in isolation on its own, isn't necessarily an issue, because you should have the capacity to roll your shoulders and move them around however you see fit. But a lot of people tend to add far too much weight to the shrug exercise. And then when you're rolling around here, if your posture isn't great while you're rolling, or you go down too far, or you can end up in a bad position, it's very easy to change the way that you're loading the tissues in your neck and your upper back and throughout those upper traps. So for me personally, I find the best way to engage the upper traps, to fatigue the upper traps with any upper trap exercise, particularly shrugs, is to make sure that you're going straight up and down. It really cuts out a lot of the movement biases and the movement habits that a lot of people do incorrectly, and it can really help you solidify a fantastic technique going forward. So that's essentially my take on the shrugs. Hopefully those few little tips were helpful. Give it a go yourself in the gym. Let me know down below in the comments how you went. And if there's other exercises that you want me to go through, we've touched on how to do the perfect push-up based on ideal body mechanics before. I'll leave a link up here so you can go to that if you want to. But if there's any other exercises that you would like me to touch on, whether it be a deadlift or a squat or something like that as well, let me know down in the comments and we'll get to that. But with that being said, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.